And Press Luncheon with JMU head football coach Mike Houston. He's going to join us here in just a moment. My name is Kurt Dudley from the Athletics Communications staff, as well as Madazone HD Sportsnet, these guys right here. Also, we're going to have a special guest with us this afternoon, Bryan Schor, the quarterback for the Dukes, and the Offensive Player of the Week in the CAA will be here for some questions as well. Dukes coming off a 42-39 win over New Hampshire, coming this past Saturday in Durham, New Hampshire. First time the Dukes had won there in their last 3 trips. Last time the Dukes won in New Hampshire was in 2006, and that year New Hampshire was ranked #1 in the country, and the Dukes came away with a 43-20 win in that contest. Dukes scored 42 this week, and they needed nearly almost all those 42 points, of course, for the victory. That makes the series at 8-8 overall, and the Dukes have won 4 out of 9 in Durham. Some of the team statistics: JMU leads the country continuously so in third down conversions at 55%, up to 189 first downs. That's #1 in the land. Punt return average 37.43. Third in rushing at 319. Fourth in with 415 yards per game in total offense, and tackles for loss allowed at 3.57. And fifth in scoring, still averaging 44.4 points per game. Khalid Abdullah finished with 57 yards at New Hampshire. That's good enough to move him into 5th on JMU's all-time chart as he surpassed Alvin Banks, who played for the 2004 National Championship team. So Khalid will go into the bye week with 2,723 yards. That puts him 60 yards shy of Curtis Keaton for 4th place. Curtis, by the way, celebrates a birthday today. He is a big 40. And Khalid needs 609 to catch Daquan Scott for 3rd all-time. A couple of other player notes: Brandon Ravenel and Terrence Alls had 2 receptions for touchdowns. Those are both career highs for Ravenel, the senior, and Alls, the junior and transfer from Duke. On the national polls this week, some adjustments. We anticipated some, but I'm not sure we anticipated the way that they went. The Dukes dropped a slot on the FCS Stats FCS poll. At the top is Sam Houston State, who, by the way, in case you didn't know, is coached by Casey Keeler, the former coach at the University of Delaware. So the Bearcats are #1, Jacksonville State #2, Eastern Washington 3. North Dakota State, which took a loss to South Dakota State, is #4. The Citadel coach, #5 on that poll. And then it's Richmond, South Dakota State, JMU at #8 on the Stats FCS poll. And a couple of other names you may recognize: Charleston Southern, and then Montana wraps up the top 10. On the coaches poll, it's Sam Houston State, Jacksonville, Eastern Washington, North Dakota, then JMU, followed by the Citadel at #6. So the Dukes do move up in that category. Dukes are idle this week. Next game will be on October 29th. That's at home against Rhode Island. Rhode Island 1-6, and that is homecoming at Bridgeport Stadium. One other note from the Duke Club: they're going to have a gourmet pairing the eve of the homecoming game. If you're looking for something to do that evening, you can kick off your weekend with members of the Duke Club, spending an evening under the lights with family and friends at Bridgeport Stadium from 8 until 10 p.m. at Zane Shoker Field. The cost is $40 per person. Registration includes 5 tastings of your choice. If you like additional tastings, it'll cost you a little bit more. And if you like more information and register, you can do so online at jmudukeclub.com/pairing. That's jmudukeclub.com/pairing, a good way to get your homecoming weekend off to a grand start. Let's bring in the head coach of the Dukes, now 6-1 and atop the CAA standings at 4-0. One other unbeaten in the league, that's Stony Brook at 3-0, so the Dukes are sitting all alone atop the league standings by a half game. Welcome into Coach Houston.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for being here again today, and thanks again to O'Neill's and Mo and her crew for hosting us this week for the luncheon. A real exciting weekend this past weekend, probably more exciting than we wanted it to be at the end, but certainly don't want to lose sight of the fact that for the first time in over a decade, James Madison University went to New Hampshire and won there in Durham. A place that New Hampshire coming into the game was 49-6 since 2007, and riding a 17-game regular season home winning streak. So certainly a place that not many visiting teams go in and get a win. So we are very excited to come out of there with a 42-39 victory, and really proud of the way the kids prepared last week. We had a great week of practice. I thought we were very focused the entire week. During pregame warm-ups, and it's, as a coach, it's probably my biggest thing is making sure our kids are ready to play, and I'm always mindful of that. I always worry about it, but this was one of those games where there was absolutely zero doubt in my mind when we walked out of the locker room that we were going to play well. I knew that we were ready to play, but I also knew that we were facing a very challenging opponent and a team that was tied with us for first place in the league. So, I figured that they would play well also. But, for 3+ quarters, I thought it was, a fairly dominating performance by our young men. And certainly New Hampshire came storming back there in the fourth quarter. They and their talent has a lot to do with that. Certainly we had some mistakes that were made there that helped them along and gave them the opportunity to make it a little tighter than we wanted it to be. But, we were able to make the plays there at the very end to secure the victory. So I think the bye week comes at a perfect time in the season. We could not be in better I guess we could have beaten North Carolina at North Carolina to be in better shape. But, outside of that, we could not be in a better position sitting atop the conference standings going into the bye. We have 4 regular season home games remaining, starting with Rhode Island coming in here next week. So this gives us a chance to spend an extra week getting ready for them, and a chance to get healed up a little bit for some of our guys, and a chance to really address some things that we need to address and spend a little more time on some things than you would get to during a normal game week. So it's at a good time. So excited to get back out on the practice field this afternoon. But with all that being said, any questions about the game this past weekend?
Coach Dave Thomas from ESPN Radio, JMU Sprint Broadcast Network. As the fourth quarter began to kind of go along, the experience of your coaching staff, how did that settle in and help keep the guys focused and ultimately get a win to ride out with?
Well, the big thing is we've been in those situations multiple times in our past. And I told the team after the ball game, I've been in that same situation and lost that ball game. And so it's once you get the momentum headed in the other direction, sometimes it's very hard to get it stopped. But I thought, for the most part, we kept our composure on the sidelines. I thought that the coaches kept both the offense and the defense engaged in the game, which was difficult because we only took 5 snaps on offense, during that span right there. But they stayed engaged. They stayed, supporting the kids on the field. The defensive kids, they didn't hang their heads. They kept fighting, and so I think that is something we can build on. Even though we did allow a team to come back, from a pretty big deficit. Fortunately though, and again, it's another thing I told the team after the game. It is hard to win ball games, especially on the road in the CAA. So we're going to celebrate the win. We're going to correct the mistakes. I'd much rather be correcting mistakes after a close win than after a close loss. So, but it certainly gives us plenty of things to address and work on during the bye week.
Coach, can you just talk a little bit about Bryan Schor's game on Saturday, and what were some of the things that kind of impressed you about his performance?
Sure. Well, I think I said post-game Saturday, I feel like Bryan has played better every single game this year, and I feel like he's continuing to improve each week. I think that goes back a lot to his work ethic. Certainly he's a talented athlete, very intelligent player. We've talked about that before. He knows our offense inside and out, but his work ethic and his competitive drive, to never be satisfied with a past performance. I don't worry about him, getting too much of an ego or getting complacent. Because he's probably his own worst critic in that he always feels like he can play better. Going into the game this past weekend, we felt like New Hampshire has a good defensive football team. They're very good against the run, and we felt like that they would have 8 defenders in the box consistently throughout the day. They were playing their safeties down. Coach Kirkpatrick anticipating that. We'd worked a lot on our play-action pass game. We'd worked a lot on some of the things that we could do with the RPO stuff to take advantage of that. And I think that we came out and did a really good job of that. From the first touchdown pass to Brandon Ravenel, which was a play-action pass, you get the linebacker sucked all the way up. Now all of a sudden Bryan has a lot of room to hit Brandon over the middle. So I think we had a good game plan in place, but then again, Bryan goes out and executes that game plan very, very well. Not only with his arm throwing the ball, but I think certainly, again, his running ability with 70 yards rushing on the day was a significant factor.
David de Guzman, WHSV-TV in Harrisonburg. Coach, you mentioned on Saturday after the game that, you learned a little bit not about just your team, but also about the conference. Now that we're going into your bye week and you kind of step back and look at the CAA overall, is it what you expected going into the season, tougher, and maybe easier, I don't know. But give us your take on what the CAA has been like for you.
Well, certainly coming into this league, I knew what a tough league it was. I knew that the top end of this league was as challenging as any in the country. So I do think the one thing that's maybe a little bit surprising is, even some of the teams that maybe were picked preseason in the lower half of the league, just the athletes that those teams have, as competitively as those teams are playing. And I just don't think that there's an easy out on our schedule. I mean, you've already started looking at Rhode Island. And the thing that stood out to me was just how well they run on defense. They have good-looking athletes over there on the defensive side of the football. Certainly we have a great challenge next weekend with them. So I think it's just week in, week out, you're going to be tested. And that's good and bad. It's the good part is you should get better every single week as long as you keep pushing if you can win those games, because you're going to have to. You just hope that you have people left standing at the end of the year, if you were fortunate enough to make the playoffs.
Greg Medea, DNR. Now that you have opened up your passing game, what do you anticipate it doing to defenses now that you've kind of shown it on tape that you can throw over the top and that you can kind of show off the deep ball?
Well, I don't know for sure. You'd hope it would loosen up the safeties a little bit so we wouldn't have them crowding the box as much. But it'll all come down to just week to week how people choose to defend us. I think I have a certain philosophy about how I would defend us, but that may not be somebody else. But I do think that the one thing I have confidence in is you can only take away so much defensively. I have confidence in our players, and I have confidence in Coach Kirkpatrick that we're going to be prepared to take advantage of whatever somebody tries to take away.
Reducing the penalties. Beginning of the season, you had a lot more than you have now. Is that part of the guys getting used to the scheme and in the flow, and how much of that is what you're instituting in practice?
Well, I think the big thing is they understand if you get flagged on Saturday, your butt's going to run on Sunday. So that's part of it. But the big thing is, we've talked about things that cause us to win and things that cause us to lose. And we made it a big point of emphasis again coming out of the William and Mary game, because we had a couple of flags there that had cost us in that game, especially in the return game. And our players at the end of the day, our players have high expectations and want to win and want to do things to help us win. And so I think it's important to them to limit the penalties, which is the start. And so I think you're seeing an increased maybe discipline from our players as far as that goes with the reduction of the flags.
Health-wise this week, who are some guys you want to get, I guess, kind of refreshed, whether they're injured or not, just tired legs, that kind of deal?
I think we're being smart this week with some of our core guys. Even guys that are playing every single week, some of them are a little beat up. And certainly that's to be expected this time of the year, so we're being smart with those guys. And that at the same time, we're going to get a chance to work with some of our younger guys this week as well. So, we're going to use this week to get refocused on what we're doing fundamentally, kind of get recharged and reloaded, with our health and our legs. And then we really want to work to improve on some key areas schematically this week.
With where you guys are in the season at 6-1, do you bring up the playoffs at all, seeding, that kind of deal?
Way too early. No, way too early.
For you on Saturday, do you try to step away from football a bit? What do you plan on doing when you're
this
not
Saturday?
coaching? Yeah, this Saturday.
This Saturday, I've got a 4-year-old soccer game at 8 a.m. I think the 7-year-old has a soccer game at 10. And I look forward to grilling a steak on a grill Saturday night.
I guess that transitions into this question. How have you and your family, by the way, your son is like the star here at O'Neill's.
Yeah, if he gets loose in here, you're going to see just what a star he is. So.
How do you and your family, been adjusting, now that you're into your first season here, just taking all in of, being in the Valley. You said,
Right.
when you first started here that, this was a little like your previous home.
Right. Well, I think we've acclimated really well. Amanda's made a lot of friends here locally, like Hillary and Gannon, who are here today joining us for lunch. And, she's found her little niches in the community, and certainly the kids. Owen's having a good year at Stone Spring Elementary and really enjoying the school system here. And I think that the alumni and the people in the community have made us feel more than welcome. So, we're feeling more and more like this is our home.
Coach, how will your staff spend this week? I know recruiting is always ongoing. Right. This gives you an opportunity maybe to get out and get some games. Will some of your staff be traveling this week to get out and see some of your kids play?
Well, a lot of the staff left Sunday night and were on the road all day yesterday, getting back in late last night. We'll all be in-house Tuesday and Wednesday this week for practice. About half of our staff will be on the road recruiting on Thursday, and then the entire staff will be back out Friday. Around really everywhere from New Jersey to Atlanta, up and down the East Coast, visiting with our committed kids, or our big focus, and then a few of the next in line kids that we're still recruiting.
And kind of building off of that, what is the brand message that's being received from these high school kids with the success JMU's had the last couple of years and what you're doing this year? What's the reception like when your coaches go onto a campus?
Well, I think, JMU has a great reputation, number one, as an academic school, and I think it's easy to sell that to parents, because all parents are concerned about the education that their son's going to get. So I think that's the biggest selling point there. I think here in the state of Virginia, I think that the high school coaches are excited about our importance that we're putting on recruiting in-state prospects. And certainly the bulk of our committed kids right now are in-state guys. And so I think that we've maybe generated a little bit of momentum there. But I think also just the success on the field has got the recruits excited. That, and they always get excited about the uniforms and the helmets and all that stuff and game day. But the success on the field really is what stands out to recruits.
I know you can't talk about specific prospects, but just in terms of the kids that you guys target, prospect-wise, are they fringe FBS kids, or are they stand out? How would you describe the type of kids that you target?
I feel like probably the bulk of our committed kids are mid-major type players. Most of them have mid-major offers as well as our offer. So we're very happy with the quality that we have right now committed. Anything else?
We do have a few other coaches from the Facebook page. Bear with me just a moment here. All right, first of all, from Chris Lawler, he wants to know, he says, the offensive line seems to have dominant moments. His question is, how do you build more consistency in the front four? Also was curious, will players like John Dacca play a bigger role going forward?
Well, I think our defensive line has improved dramatically from week one, and I think you can look at it statistically, but I look at it as how they play, consistently play after play. A guy like Simeon Robinson, who played 99 snaps on Saturday, which is unheard of for a defensive tackle, and had, really a great day. I look back when we first started, I couldn't get him to stay in the right gap all the time. So they've improved dramatically since week one. I look for them to continue to improve. The biggest thing is I hope guys like John Dacca do continue to come along. John played a good bit on Saturday. I don't know how much people noticed, but he actually played inside at nose tackle in our spy package on Saturday. So he's a guy that we're looking to try to get a role and get him on the field more, and hopefully we can get more of those guys in there because depth on the D-line is always important.
Yes, the depth of the D-line. You and I talked last night on the coaches show that you, in an ideal situation, right now you're using 7, including Dacca. In an ideal situation, you'd like to rotate 8 to 10 in.
Yeah, and it's what we were able to do last year at the Citadel. It's what we've been able to do on the good teams we had at LR, because that way at least if you always have fresh bodies up front, then you're always playing at the highest level. And if you can do that, then usually your coverage is a lot better in the secondary if you got pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, Mike Evangelista had a question about John Dack, and you kind of answered
Sure.
that right there from Mike. Also, Peter Mooney's question, kind of paraphrasing it, he says it talks about the fourth quarters in some of the ball games when the game is, in quotations, decided. But in that frame, you've averaged giving up almost 2 touchdowns per quarter in those situations. So what is the coaching staff going to do moving forward to address what could be an issue in the fourth quarter?
Well, the big thing, our message to the team is we want to make sure that we improve on finishing games. And certainly it's something that's important to the team and important to us. I can tell you that when I left the office 20 minutes ago, Coach Trott had the defensive staff in the middle of dissecting the last 10 minutes of the ball game Saturday again. And this is after spending a lot of time on the plane ride Saturday night and all day Sunday dissecting it. So it's certainly something that we're trying to address. It's something that we need to address in all 3 phases, because at the end of the day, it is a team deal, and that comeback is a team deal on Saturday also. At the end, you can't have 2 turnovers there in the last 10 minutes, giving possessions back to the opponent and putting your defense right back out on the field. You can't do that consistently and be successful. So it's a team deal. The kids know that. The coaches know that, and so they're committed to getting it corrected. The positive thing is we've had the big leads in all those ball games, and so that's allowed us to not have to suffer a loss because of a comeback yet.
One more question from our Facebook Live viewers, and that's from Peter Bird. Kickoff coverage leads the CA a year after it was a real weakness for the team. What has your staff done to change in that department, allowed this unit to really flourish? I'm sorry. Okay. The question from Peter Bird was, the Dukes lead the CAA in kickoff coverage,
Yeah.
and what have you done to improve an area that was obviously a very big weakness a year ago?
Well, we're using the same scheme that I've used for about the last 7 years. So it's and really it builds on putting guys out there that can run, that are very aggressive. And fortunately, we've got several guys that fit that mold. And you watch our unit when the ball's kicked off, we basically tell Tyler most of the time to kick it as high and as deep as you can, and then allow our kids to run, and we try to fit it just like we do a defensive play. But it's the kids' attitude with how they cover. It's very aggressive coverage, and the players have done a great job of embracing that, and they've taken a lot of pride in the average starting field position for the opponent on kickoffs throughout the year, and they've done a good job with it.
Are you asking Tyler Gray to directional kick at times, and do you want him to drop it inside the 10 to provide that coverage, or philosophically, what are you doing there?
Well, at times we've moved the ball around. If we're facing a very dynamic returner, then we may want to use a directional kick or some other variations as opposed to kicking it straight to him. But the big thing, I've tried directional kicking in the past a lot, and sometimes you get into where the kicker, you kick it out of bounds, or you're supposed to kick it to the left, and he kicks it, the wrong direction, so it doesn't fit your coverage. So really, we try to ask Tyler just to get us as much hang time on the kick as he possibly can, and to try to get it inside the 5-yard line.
All right, Coach, thank you for answering the questions of those of the media, also to those that are watching on Facebook Live. Don't leave, we've got some more.
Yep, I was about to say, it's been trying to do this all year, so I'm glad Bryan's professors, coordinated with us today by canceling his class. But, certainly I think it's a very fitting week to have Bryan Schor here with us, the reigning CAA Offensive Player of the Week. And I can promise you'll enjoy this time. But as good of a player as Bryan Schor is on the field, I promise you he's a better young man off the field. And hopefully one of my little guys will grow up to be just like him one day. So, Bryan, come on up.
Thank you, Bryan. We'll just open it up to the members of the media for questions of Bryan Schor, the CA Player of the Week offensively, after his performance, a career best performance this past Saturday against New Hampshire. Gentlemen?
Greg Medea, DNR, when you guys were going into the New Hampshire game, knowing that you would open up the passing game a little bit, what was kind of your feeling as the quarterback kind of waiting for that moment, I guess, waiting for you guys to open up the passing game?
You know, I was really excited. I think all week, as Coach said, we had a really good practice, and we felt really comfortable with the scheme that we were going to see this weekend. So I think going into it, I was really excited, and I think that carried over to a lot of the guys on our offensive side.
With the receivers that you have, Terrence Alls and Brandon Ravenel, what's the comfort with both those guys at this point? It seemed like on Saturday you were able to find rhythm with both of them.
I'm very comfortable. Yeah, as you can see on Saturday, I mean, they just get open. They give me really good areas to throw the ball, and the really exciting thing is I can throw the ball 15 yards, and Terrence can break a tackle and run for 60 like you saw, or Ravenel can catch it from maybe a 7-yard pass and take it to the house. So it's definitely very exciting for me, and I feel very comfortable throwing the ball to them.
Hey, Bryan, will you tell us about your relationship, or your communication with Khalid and Carden on the read option plays, where oftentimes you may keep the ball or you'll give the ball to them? Just kind of talk about how you guys communicate with one another on the field during the game.
You know, it's kind of a chemistry that we've developed. I mean, we practice the read pretty much every day at our practice, so it's nothing we really communicate between each other. It's just kind of a feel that we've gotten for it. I can say back probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago when I first got here, we didn't have the chemistry that we have now. I put the ball on the ground a couple of times in practice a couple of years ago, but just really getting the reps together and being out there over the summer and doing those little things is really what's kind of helped us get a lot better at the read option.
Tommy Keeler, Northern Virginia Daily. Brian, how would you kind of assess where your game is at right now? What do you feel like you've really kind of improved on since the start of the season?
You know, I would say I'm playing well, but I see on film when we watch, I definitely have areas to improve. I know my footwork has to get better. I know there's certain reads that I'm still missing. And we come in and watch film on Sundays, there's still a lot of points that we're leaving on the board, and that's something we've talked about. And going into the bye week, there's definitely things I have to fix, and I'm excited to really attack this week and get better.
Talk about the team as a whole. How do you feel like, how would you kind of assess where you guys are kind of at right now as a team?
I would say we're right where we need to be. Going into the bye week, it's kind of coming at a perfect time. We've got a couple guys a little dinged up here and there, and so it's a good week to kind of go get healthy. But I think mentally we're in a pretty good spot right now. We're pretty comfortable. We've had games that have challenged us on offense, and we've had games that have challenged us on special teams and on defense. So as a team, we've really come together, and we've had those team wins. A couple weeks ago, back up at Maine, we struggled offensively, and our defense kind of really just gutted one out and kind of got us in the spot where we could win. And then this past weekend, we had a really big play on special teams kind of come up and seal the game for us. So I think as a team, mentally, we're kind of right where we need to be going into the bye week.
Bryan, tell us about your approach to practice. The coaching staff has talked about how hard you've worked since the offseason. What is your approach to every practice going into every week, especially now that you're in league play?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely try to do my best every day at practice, and I try to attack and get better each day. And that's just something that I've always kind of had. I guess I have a chip on my shoulder a little bit when it comes to that. And I always want to do the best I can at practice. And if there's someone seeing me for the first time that day, I want them to know that I'm doing the best I can. I'm going to work as hard as I can. And that's something I want the rest of the team to see me doing too. I know I'm at a position where people are going to see the way I play and the way I act at practice. So I want to make sure that people know that every day I go out there, I'm trying to do my best.
You guys are leaving some points out on the field offensively. Where do you see that at all? Because, I mean, you guys are scoring more than 40 points per game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty picky when it comes to not scoring touchdowns. That kind of aggravates me a little bit. When we have to kick a field goal, it's kind of depressing for me, and I think the offense feels the same way. And I think that's a good feeling to have. You know, we don't look as, oh, we have to score 40 points. We look at we have to score more points than the other team. And the way we attack that is every drive that we go out there that we want to score a touchdown. We know, and something we say to each other is the team that's going to stop us is ourselves. And there's been times that we went out there this year and we've been stopped in the red zone. Like, for example, like William and Mary, we were stopped in the red zone a couple times, and and that's not something that we want to do as an offense. Every time we get the ball, we're going to try to score a touchdown, and if we don't do that, then we're not going to be too happy about that drive.
Bryan, we talked after the UNC game when Vad Lee was there, how he kind of has influenced you. Now that we've seen you a couple more games and a couple more successes, looking back at that, how has Vad kind of inspired your style of play? Like, what did you take away from your first 2 seasons playing with him to have the success that you're having now?
I don't know if there's a certain style of play that Vad had that kind of inspired me to change it all, but one thing that I've always loved about Vad and loved watching Vad play was there was never a stage that was too big for Vad Lee. I saw SMU, the same guy he was the first week. So that's something that I've taken into my game a little bit, is that, no matter where you are, no matter who you're playing, you're still the same person, you're still playing with the same guys. So just to not let any stage kind of affect the way that you're going to play. It's the same thing each week, and that's something I've definitely taken from Vad.
Third straight week, your offensive line has not given up a sack, so I know you're probably thankful for that. Talk about your relationship with the guys in front of you.
Yeah, I was hoping we'd get to that at some point today. I'm getting a lot of praise, probably more than I deserve, and I don't know if people realize we haven't given up a sack in 3 weeks. I don't know if I'd be the guy standing up here if we had given up sacks and stuff, So I definitely give a lot of praise to those guys, and I have a really tight relationship with them, and I really hope that they know that I appreciate them, and they're kind of the reason that I'm up here right now. It's no coincidence that our offense has played so well in the last couple of weeks, and we haven't given up a sack in those last couple of weeks. So definitely a lot of praise to those guys, and I hope they get the recognition they deserve.
Bryan, as this season has gone along, early in the year it was a lot of the run in the first couple of games, and folks were wondering, well, will the passing game show up? And this week I think it proved that you have a very balanced offense, maybe not 50-50, but you can do what you need to do. So going back to the offensive line, how is this group of guys so adaptable to whether they're going to run the football with power or be a little more finesse and block for you to throw the football? Can you talk about their adaptability?
Yeah, I guess that's something I've never really thought about, is how hard it is for an offensive line to go out and run block every game and be really good at blocking for the run, and then also be really good at protecting for the quarterback. Yeah, that's definitely something that deserves a lot of praise. That's got to be very difficult to ask that of them each week, and it's something that they've definitely executed each week for me. So I don't know how they do it, but I'm grateful that they do.
You made it known that you don't like giving up on a play, and you've made some pretty spectacular plays by not giving up on it. Have you seen that feed the rest of the offense to where all of a sudden they're kind of responding and they don't want to give off that play either?
Yeah, I think when those plays happen, it really helps our momentum. When you can extend a play and make a big play, it really kind of flips the momentum in your swing, and it kind of clicks your offense where, it might be 2nd and 8, and we might not have the perfect play for the perfect defense called, and something happened, and we either were able to make a big pass play or Dulo was able to make a certain play happen, and those type of plays kind of just throw the momentum in your swing and kind of get you guys back on track. So it's definitely something I'd like to do. As long as it doesn't get me in too much trouble, I'd like to keep doing it, but I just try to be safe in those type of plays and just get us to a good down and distance for the next play call.
Last year's tempo was just so fast. It was so wide open, and you've shown that you can flourish in that this year, but also there's some flexibility this year in slowing it down a little bit. Do you like the fluctuation level of the tempo of your offense?
Yeah, I love it. I really like to just move at whatever tempo we feel comfortable. One thing about going fast is when you're really speeding up the tempo of your offense, the center has to make a lot of calls, and the defense is still getting set, so you find yourself snapping the ball sometimes, and the defense isn't set, and the center can't make the right calls, and it's kind of unlucky because the defense might just end up in the right spot. So you might snap the ball, and the defense might not be lined up perfectly, and they might stop you in the backfield, or you might snap it, and it might go for 80 yards. But when we're working at the right rhythm that feels comfortable to us, I feel that we can make the right calls, and we can get ourselves into the right plays to have efficient run plays or efficient pass plays.
Bryan, what's your bye week Saturday plans since you're not going to be playing, obviously? Do you try to step away from football a bit, or are you going to be engrossed in other games going on?
You know, I haven't even thought about it yet. I've got a big presentation in one of my classes coming up, so once I get through with that on Thursday, I'll feel a lot more comfortable in deciding what I'm going to do. But I plan on staying in Harrisonburg, just hanging out with the guys, probably watching football on Saturday and Sunday, and just hanging out, kind of getting this last deep breath in before we finish the rest of the season off.
Any other questions, gentlemen? No? Okay. Bryan, thank you very much. Congratulations on the success thus far, and good wishes to continued success with the Dukes this season. Appreciate you being here this afternoon. Thank you one and all here at O'Neill's. And again, we'll be back next Tuesday for more of our Fan and Press Luncheon with JMU football coach Mike Houston. We're also getting close to the college basketball season. Our first Tuesday in November, we will also have Coach Sean O'Regan as well as Coach Lewis Rowe here and Coach Houston. That's the first Tuesday in November. In fact, next Tuesday is CAA Media Day up in Washington, D.C. But we will have our Fan and Press Luncheon with Coach Houston here as we'll talk a little bit more about the upcoming opponent, the Rams of Rhode Island. And again, that game is Saturday, October 29th, kickoff at 3:30. Thanks again for joining us here at O'Neill's Grill.